Australia were just dismissed by India in the same time it takes you to execute a fart. But while that is funny, this is the absolute worst time to be a batter touring India. For most of India's history, it has been an absolute dream place to bat. And then sometime around 2010, it started to get a little bit tougher. And then after that, well, it got absolutely awful. Any runs there made by a tourist should be celebrated like we found a new dinosaur. And it has not always been that way. India was one of the easiest places in Test cricket to make runs. Batters for generations feasted on their pitches that allowed you to average over 35 runs per wicket. That is a massive amount. Especially through the 90s when the global mark took a dip. India was the place where it was great to bat. And now, it is not. It's gone from the easiest to the 8th best. That is an incredible change. Despite almost every single part of Indian cricket being dissected, perhaps because this started at the beginning of the social media age, no one has realised that batting has got so much tougher in India. Or that it's been happening for this long. Although maybe of recent times there have been bigger issues when it comes to Indian cricket, like what kind of face Virat Kohli is showing when someone delivers him food. But if we go back to the runs, you can see that for a very long time, batting in India was far easier than everywhere else. And on this, you can also see that when the global drop happened due to the pace-playing pandemic, India also dropped off a little bit. That's not really a coincidence because kind of everywhere bar New Zealand and Pakistan have been hit. Now, you're not going to be shocked here, but the major problem, of course, is that the away batters are struggling to find a single run. It has been horrible to watch teams turning up to India and playing like the wicket is made of lava. And we've all seen it, and it feels like it's actually getting worse. Each series, a new batch of victims turn up and leave with fewer runs than those from before. But when you put the home batters in, it doesn't really get bad to the last 3 years. It is at that point that the Indian batters are even struggling at home, which does give you an idea of just how tricky the pitches have been. But before that, it is 100% the away teams pulling down this record. And if you look at the away players in India compared to the global away average, you can see that until 2017, while players struggled to make any runs when visiting India, it was a very similar mark to the global average. From 2014 onwards, something massively changes. And if you look at the entire history of Indian bowlers at home, you can see that this really is the glory years. I mean, as good as Indian batting has often been, Indian bowling has never had great attacks. Individual bowlers have not been a problem, but an entire unit being awesome has never really existed. You put this together with traditional batting-friendly pitches, and Indian bowlers have always been in a fight. That was until 2015. That's a very important year. And I wonder what happened then. Oh yeah, that's when R. Ashwin and Ravi Jadeja came together. This is every home year, and how many wickets were taken by each individual bowler. Ashwin was already starting to fly at home from 2011. But it's 2013 when Jadeja joins him as a frontliner when shit gets real. They have essentially become the greatest spin bowling duo India has ever had. And probably the world has ever had. And I know the last graph was a little bit messy. So this is just them, taking absolute bags of wickets every year while boosting the batting and the ability for India to have 5 bowling options at home thanks to Jadeja. They have just been simply magnificent. Obviously the generation before them had Harbhajan Singh and Anil Kumble. Both have more wickets combined than Jadeja and Ashwin so far. But there's a couple of crucial differences. They didn't really start around the same time, whereas Ashwin and Jadeja are almost exactly the same generation. But when you start to factor in the average, that's when you realise how much better Ashwin and Jadeja are than Harbhajan and Kumble. Not only do they have a scary amount of wickets, but they're also averaging around 20 at home. You have to go back a fair way in this graph to actually find Kumble, and Harbhajan is back even further still. And these were both very good bowlers at home, but they were nothing like Ashwin and Jadeja. There's just no way to look at this and not think that there is absolutely something incredible going on. And also, you can find Mohammad Shami and Umesh Yadav up here too, who are representing another golden age of Indian bowling for their quick bowlers. Until 1990, Indian seam bowling meant Kapil Dev. Since then, there has been an explosion of bowlers taking wickets with seam. But having Jasprit Bumrah, Umesh Yadav, Mohammad Siraj, Ishant Sharma and Mohammad Shami all at the same time is going from riding a bike to being on a space shuttle. You might argue that India have had better bowlers than now. Maybe you'd still like Anil Kumble's wrist spin in there, or perhaps the romance of Bishan Bedi still does it for you over Jadeja, or you could argue that Kapil Dev's overall package is better than any of the modern quicks on their own. But as a bowling unit of 4 or 5 players, India's current lineup is by far the best they've ever had. I mean, it actually looks stupid to see how many of the bowlers with the best records ever come from this era. Modern Indian bowlers are almost playing a different sport. Now, part of the reason for lower averages could be that the BCCI is spreading tests to so many venues. But in truth, there is also just a global shortage of test runs at the exact same time India has their greatest bowling lineup. So that feels far more likely the reason than a few test outgrounds bringing down the averages. Oh, and before your uncle says something along the lines of, yeah, of course they're taking a lot of wickets at home, the pitches have been a lot spicier there. That's true. And India does have the best bowling record at home in the world. But do you know what they also have? The best bowling record away from home in the world. They're taking wickets at home or as tourists in a way that they just never have as a nation ever before. And there is something else here a little bit fun about batting in India. Most of the damage, of course, has been done by the spinners with some excellent cameos from their quicks. And obviously, it's been the spinning pitches that have bothered the batters the most. India can't play a test series at home at the moment without the word doctored being part of every headline. But the two worst teams batting in India have been Sri Lanka and Bangladesh. Now, of course, the caveat is that they've not been incredibly strong with the bat in that time. But this does suggest that this isn't just pitches that spin a lot trapping batters from outside Asia. This is about the quality of the bowlers on helpful surfaces. And just for fun, should we look at the top of the list for the batters touring India? England are the best tourists, and then Australia are the second best. Australia, the batting lineup that just lost a test in the click of I don't know. All I'm saying is, it's tough for everyone at the moment. Australia's just the latest victims. It would seem that to get a visa to travel to India at the moment, you would have to waive your rights to any runs at all.